All right, all right, we're live. Welcome to the Ramsey Paul Show. No, no, it's not the Ramsey Paul Show. It's Happy Homelands. I forgot. Every Wednesday night, I decided to do a new show called Happy Homelands, which I used to do with Tina Veek, Sticks, and then Sasha. And I decided to restart it again on Wednesdays evenings because I do have my Ramsey Paul show every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So, welcome so much. It's great to have you guys here. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, and X, so you can watch me in all three places. Many episodes I shut down early on YouTube. I don't think I'm going to do that tonight, but many times I do that. Like if I have an interview. So, Happy Homelands, I do a little bit different. It's not so much like the Ramsey Paul show where I go through all the news of the day. I could do a little bit of that, but it's just more getting a topic, talking about it, get people to interview, that type of thing. I typically go about an hour. So it's great to have you guys here. It's great to be back streaming again after my travels across the United States and got married in Las Vegas. So it's been a lot of stuff going on, but it's definitely good to be back. So yeah, it's great to see you all. And let's see, I already got a power chat from Kim Anthony. He's from Finland. Hey Rams, some tip for you about reading Quentin Patrick, which is Hugh Wheeler and Richard Webb. It's incredible that people have forgotten these classics. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. Let me copy that over in the chat so we can see that. So this is from Kim. He's a friend of mine in Finland, so it's good to see that. So, yeah, we'll get going here with the show. If you want to ask your question or contribute, there's power chats right below. I love those. Stream Elements is a feature similar to power chats. YouTube has super chats. Rumble has rants. And as always, I encourage people to join my Gumroad. We get together every weekend and we have a roundtable, which is a lot of fun. This week it's going to be Sunday. And there's also exclusive videos. I did an exclusive video today just for my Gumroad GroupApp, Twitter subscribers, and Substack. So I really do appreciate that. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. Then I saw this post on X from Rebecca, and I thought this made a lot of sense. It's something, a couple things that have been in the news and in our sphere. And let me just show you real quick a summary of what's going on if you if you've been in a 6 month coma. Conservative Inc., funded by Israel, is being split down the middle by those who are sick of towing the line. Most actually have strong opinions on Palestine, but some correctly see it as an opportunity to get out of the thumb of the powers that be. Yeah, I want to talk about that. I think this is a significant development. It came to the head with Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, where Candace Owens got fired because of her views on Israel. And more than that, it's more than just Israel, it's about Christianity and what should, as a conservative people or as Republicans, I'm not a Republican, but if you're on the right, what should be your view on Israel? There's a huge split, and I want to talk about that a little more. You see it all the time, and in many ways, I see as a generational split because the people that really supported Israel in the Republican Party tended to be older boomers. And I'm not against boomers, so it's not hate there, but older white people who are Christians who believe, Jews are God's chosen people and God will bless those who bless Israel. They got this whole Christian Zionist heresy. And so they're really, really tied to Israel. Israel's the good guys. The Muslims are the bad guys. We got to support Israel. They're our best little friend. But that whole routine is starting to wear thin. And as the older boomer Christian boomers that supported Israel and by default, like the Daily Wire, right? Because the Daily Wire is a type of conservatism That's, some social issues. They push back on some of the LGBTQ stuff. And, Ben Shapiro will go to campus and trigger a purple-haired woman, and you go, "Yeah, go Ben." But it all basically comes back down to Israel is what they stand for. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but this is really a big realignment. And then she talked about the trad and manosphere red pillars warring. And this is a fascinating thing that has come to a head because you have Pearl, who's kind of on the manosphere side. I always thought she's somewhat of a troll, but maybe she's serious. I don't know. But she's been fighting with Lauren Southern, who used to be kind of in our sphere. It's funny because I knew Lauren Southern person. I talked to her personally. We did a few times, and this was before she was super famous. But Lauren Southern literally got her start by saying anti-feminist talking points, and she was cute, and that's how she got big. And then she got married, dropped out of the limelight for a year, and got divorced. And now she's trying to re-image herself, and she's dropped a lot of her conservative trad wife, all that type of stuff seems to be out the window. Many such cases, many such cases. I always warn people, especially about young girls, you got to be very, very careful of their opinions because they're bound to change. And so we'll get into that a little bit. But it's also come up with Steven Crowder. I mean, here's a guy on the right, and he, I guess, was married, supposed to have a stay-at-home mom, had a couple of kids, the whole bit. I guess he made a ton of money. And now, his wife is divorcing him, and it's got real public, and it's just, there's been people, they're throwing crap at each other right and left. And so it's getting a thought about this whole, what it should be the structure for a family in a right wing or conservative or whatever you want to say about it, because there's two different spheres, right? You kind of have the traditional sphere of, oh, well, women, they're pure, they need to stay home, barefoot in the wheat fields and bake breakfast and supper and have a lot of babies. You get the idea, right? There's that style of thinking. And then you have kind of the man sphere that's been around for quite a while. I mean, it's been around for years. Red pill. It kind of came out of the pickup artist community, understanding the nature of women. And that view is women are potentially dangerous and they can be of use, but you don't want to get tied to them. And in many extreme cases, it's like, it really kind of escalated, and even on the right with like Nick Fuentes, and he got a lot of his ideas from Andrew Anglin, that that one tribe is not really the problem, it's women, they're the problem. And so there became a lot of not just anti-feminism within the sphere, but anti-women. And it almost had like a gay undercurrent, to be honest, in some cases, not all cases. So we kind of got this big split here in a couple things. So you have the Israel question, and then you have the woman question, and it's kind of a civil war in the right now about those two questions. And I try to navigate through this. Right, it's interesting how I've evolved over the years. Even though my perspective has been pretty consistent, I've seen the culture around me has changed so much. I guess I should take that as a compliment, because when I first started out, I was considered super extreme radical, and my views haven't changed. But the whole right wing conservatism, I'm not taking credit for it, but they have kind of moved in my direction, and in some cases beyond me. And it's interesting how that has happened, because I started my YouTube career primarily, I made fun of feminists. And in fact, that's how Lauren Southern got started. She used to watch me, and she started to do some of my stuff, and she did, and good for her. But that was that sphere that you didn't really see that before then. but now it's taken to a different place. And the whole Israel question is interesting too. That used to be basically a taboo subject, that if you're a Republican or conservative, is rah rah Israel. And you see that to a degree still, but the people that have that attitude, it's like they're still in the 70s wearing leisure suits or something, doing disco. They're really outdated, right? It's really outdated. And even my senator, Tom Cotton, or my ex-governor, Asa Hutchinson, how dated they are about the whole issue, and how they really don't have, they don't read the temperature of the base. And that I think is a fascinating issue, how things have really changed. So these are two things that came to a head that I think are really key of what does it mean to be conservative slash right wing. That's something I did a video about. I think I made it public. I forget my videos. I'm trying to do a video every day and once a week for my Gumroad subscribers or Substack. But I did a video about the bigger concept is what does it really mean to be conservative or right wing, or in our sphere? What does that mean? Do we embrace homosexuality? Do we embrace feminism? Do we support Israel? Do we think Israel's the enemy? How do we reconcile this all? And I think this is a good conversation, because I think the path we were going down with the GOP is a loser's path. Because there's one thing about the GOP, is they're the party of losers. They always fail, because pretty much they just copy whatever the Democrats are saying just a few years later. They're kind of like a shadow that follows the left. So the left, they even have the term progressive, and the left's view of history. Z-Man's talked about this, and I found this interesting, and I've heard it elsewhere, but they have almost a spiritual view that came out of Christianity, even though the left isn't Christian anymore and they usually don't believe in God. But a lot of the idea of Christianity was not that, it's not like the Hindu or Buddhist where time is a circle, or like the atheist view, life is pretty well meaningless. There's a big bang, and then eventually there's going to be the heat death of the universe, and that's it. Whereas the Christianity, we have the view that we're part of a greater story with Christ, and a lot of symbolism in the Old Testament, that it was revealed in the New Testament, and then we're waiting the second coming. And there's a linear progress of history within Christianity. So it's just not, it's something you build upon. It's just not a circle. It's just not steady state. You're building towards a goal. Well, the progressives, because a lot of them came out of Christianity, not the modern SJWs, but I mean their ancestors did. For example, the raid on Harper's Ferry was done by a real radical, crazy guy named John Brown. That was right before the Civil War. This nut, he was an abolitionist. He went to Kansas and murdered a bunch of people, and then he was trying to start a slave uprising. They went to Harper's Ferry, and they had this little motley crew. And the first person they killed was a black guy. It was kind of funny. It's just a whole screw up. They did this raid on Harper's Ferry. All right, we took over this armory. Then they're like, okay, now what? And they're like, oh, now all the slaves are going to uprise. And well, that didn't happen. So now what? So they all got caught and hanged. But John Brown was a very religious man. He always read the Bible, and he was really devout. So we have that tradition that came out of Christianity. Now, the God part and Jesus part has been jettisoned by most modern churches now. They're heretical. It was bound to happen because they weren't tied to a church. They were able to interpret it every which way they wanted. Everyone, you read the Bible, interpret it however you want. Eventually that leads you in strange places. But that they got the view of history of progress, right? So progressive, they see we're on a track of progress, and that progress cannot be stopped. And if you try to stop the progress, you are evil. And so this is how they see all of history. And it's hard for them to reconcile that they may be wrong. and they're going the wrong way. I mean, Biden's always talking, what will history think of us? Like history's a god. Well, it's, whoever wins writes the history. So there's a lot of questions here when it comes to what it really means to be us. What does it mean to be traditional? And how does it relate to Israel? How does it relate to women? In the Republican Party, they've been basically like progressives, meaning just at a slower rate. So whatever the left grabs onto, let's say like gay marriage. I mean, that's a crazy concept. I will never recognize it. You can't have a gay marriage. The state can recognize it, but it's an abomination. It's wrong. Even Obama used to think so. No one thought that was crazy. But now Republicans cheered on. And this is an example of how the Republicans always go. They just follow along. And so we need a real kind of check here of like, where are we really going? What's the purpose? What's the vision? Because unless we have the vision, we're never going to get where we want to go. And so I think these debates are actually a good thing that we're having within the right wing. And the left wing, they're having their own debates too. They're big time. And actually, they're having a big debate about Israel too, kind of in a different way, from a different angle than we are, but they're still having that debate too. So in the Biden administration, they're really caught in the middle of that on the left because most of the Biden administration is Jewish, but most of their base are like brown people who see Israel as colonializers and they're oppressors of the brown Palestinian people, and they kind of see the Jews as white and white people bad because that's been what we've been taught. Especially that group has taught that in their literature and the intellectuals. We got to eliminate whiteness and so forth. And so a lot of these brown people are saying, "Oh, like you're white, right?" No, not like us. We're different. But this is the thing that's happening. And so I just kind of wanted to talk. What does this really mean for us, and how do we need to go forward? So, I guess I'll start with the women stuff or the relationship stuff first, just because I've already talked quite a bit about Israel, but I'm gonna touch base on that before I end. Midnight Sun, $2 a power chat. Thank you. I really do appreciate that, Midnight Sun. It is great to see that there. All right, all right. So let's take a look at this. And we'll see how we can navigate this in a way that makes a little bit of sense. And I don't want to be the guy like, oh, I'm the moderate. I see the good positions of both. We got to take the right position, and it doesn't matter who it offends. We got to do what we believe is right. Okay, Pearl Davis. I have to be honest. When I first saw Pearl Davis, I didn't even know anything about her. I thought she was kind of a normie liberal or something. Then she had Nick Fuentes on to debate him or something. Then I think she got demonetized for that. And she's really kind of aligned herself kind of in the manosphere and just saying stuff that's kind of crazy. She'd be like one of those guys, oh, women suck. Women are stupid. She's one of those people. And when she said this and I started seeing her, I'm like, well, she's trolling, right? She's looking for an audience. I don't think she really believes this. I don't know. I'm not telepathic, but she's really kind of got into this space. And it's sort of like Candace Owens made her bones when she was this black woman that was against Black Lives Matter, right? Whenever you do something like that, it gives it a little bit of credibility. And like, how can you say I'm racist? Candace Owens believes this, and she's a black woman, right? So Pearl Davis is kind of doing the same stick, right? She's a young woman, but oh, I hate women. Women are trouble. So you can't call me a sexist or a misogynist because I am a woman. And so I always kind of got that vibe from her, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm willing to learn, but that's the vibe I got from her. But it's interesting because she's going back and forth, and she's really good at stirring drama. And I'm not sure why she's doing it. Maybe she wants the fame. I take it she comes from a very wealthy family, so she probably doesn't need the money. but she's been really triggering these people either on the left or even on the right, women, with her position. So she was talking about the Crowder case, and Hillary Crowder, that was Steve Crowder's wife, is receiving $25,000 a month in child support. See, this is what is crazy and corrupt in our family court system. Uh, first backing up, I'll tell you what, if my ideal how things should be in the Ramsey Paul kingdom, someday I'm going to write this all out. Divorce would not be allowed when you have children under 18. So if you can't get along, maybe you live separate, but the mom and the dad, the primary purpose for them are for the children and raising them. So even if the mom and the dad can't stand each other or they're saying mean things to each other, because I guess, you remember the famous tape that Hillary secretly had of Steven Crowder getting mad at her because she wanted to go to the store and she's pregnant and he didn't want to give her the car keys or something like that. He came across as kind of a jerk. And I'm sure Steven Crowder is a jerk. I'm sure he's got a huge ego and everything. But she released it and it started this whole thing, this whole public debate. So they got a lot of money, but in my system, you wouldn't divorce if you had kids. So you just have to work through it. If he's a jerk, well, you're out of luck. You're still married. You still got to raise your kids. But in our system, you can't get divorced with children, young children. And the child support mechanism is the primary way now women get money from men. I'm just, maybe I'm sounding anti woman here, but it's true. Because alimony kind of has fallen out of favor. It really has. It's something a lot of states are pulling back from. Some states still do it. It depends on the state you're in. I guess California and New York are really bad. But other states are a little bit better because what has happened now with alimony is it started to really piss off women because in a divorce, everything is supposed to be equal. Haha. But so what would happen is if your wife was making a lot of money at a job, more than you, and you got a divorce, she would have to pay you alimony. And it was rare, but it happened. I remember Mike Cernovich, he used to brag about it. He was his first marriage, and I like Mike, but he was married to some top Facebook executive, I think he said. And they got divorced, and she had to pay him like tons of money. I want to say like 100,000 a month or something crazy. I could get that wrong, but it was a lot of money. And that was when Cernovich went through his PUA, men's sphere, red pill phase or whatever. That's a good thing about Mike Cernovich. He's always kind of rebranding himself, but he was in that phase back then. So women can pay alimony. So that has kind of got out of favor. So they're like, yeah, we're going to kind of step back from that a little bit. And it is stupid. There shouldn't be alimony on either side. But what they did then is child support, which is, this is kind of crazy. So how it used to be in the United States and most of the Western world is the children belong to the father. That's why they take your last name. It's sort of a relic. But now in the new system, children are de facto, they belong to the woman, the wife, the mother. Not officially, but really they belong to the woman legally. And again, that's not de jure, that's de facto, meaning that's just in fact. So what happens in a typical divorce as children is women, when there's kids, they get custody 90% of the time. And the 10% of the time is usually when the mothers don't even want their kids for whatever reason. They found a new boyfriend and the new boyfriend doesn't want some rugrats running around. So the mother says, yeah, I don't want them. You take them. That can happen. And it does happen. In a couple of cases, it happened in my case. My mother left my father when I was pretty young. She didn't want our kids. She later regretted it, but my father got custody. But otherwise, there was no way my dad would ever get custody. So he kind of lucked out there. And a lot of people say, oh, yeah, but if that's because men usually don't fight for custody. Well, the reason men don't fight for custody custody is because if you have a lawyer that is ethical, I know, oxymoron, right? But if you have a lawyer that has a sense of morality, he will tell his client, the man, that you can fight for custody, but you're probably not going to win. And you're going to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And invariably, it's going to go to the woman. I mean, unless the mother is a literal drug addict, prostitute, and even then, it'll probably go to the mother. So it's very, very difficult to win child support, physical custody. Now, how they do it, both sides get legal custody, but physical custody is important because if you got physical custody, then the other party, which is usually the husband, has to pay child support. And the theory is both parties should have to pay to support the child, not just one party, right? But where it gets really screwed is child support becomes a form of de facto alimony. Like in this case, Hillary Crowder, her child, or they have two kids, you don't need $25,000 a month. And because how the course would state this, because she would have to pay too, but she doesn't have to pay because it's her. But they would look, oh, okay, so $50,000 a month it requires to raise two kids. No bullshit. And so they determine child support not on how much it costs to raise a child, but on how much money the father has. But that's just outrageous. It shouldn't be that. It should be just for the child, and it doesn't cost $25,000 a month to raise a child. So what typically will happen here in reality, right? So maybe Hillary will pay, I don't know, 500, 600. I don't know how much it costs for a kid now, but it's not really that much. So maybe she spends $1,000 a month on the children, and the other $24,000 a month she can go to Europe, hang out with a new boyfriend, get a new car. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a shit lot of money. I know Steven Crowder's rich, and I guess people get really rich in this streaming sphere. Not me, but I guess some people do. Man, so this whole child support thing is a scam and it's unwarranted. Now, in my system, I wouldn't have child support because divorce would not be allowed if you have small children. Now, I would allow divorce before you have children. Sometimes people marry and they're like, oh my God, this is a mistake. Okay, we allow divorce in. Or after the kids are out of the house, I would even allow it. But even then, I would limit divorces. How many divorces you get in your lifetime? I think three. Three strikes and you're out. If you fail in three marriages, no more can you get married. I would just know because you're making a mockery out of it. So people get married 7, 8, 9 times. No, that wouldn't happen. But if there is child support in this system, it should be just to raise a child, the cost to raise a child. And how it should be is the mother, when the money comes in, she should have to, on demand, provide receipts to the father saying, this is how I spent the money, right? The kids need food, they need clothes, whatever, school supplies. This is the bill for it. Here, I have it in this spreadsheet, Steve, and I'm on the hook for 50% of this, right? So let's say she determines I spent $1,000 on the kids this month. So you owe me $500. And here's the receipts. Here's the receipts of the clothes I got, the food I got, the school supplies. It all $1,000 this month. So for this month, you owe me $500. I could support that, but that's not how they do that. They don't, there's no accountability. Hillary's fine to spend, she can spend all the child support on herself. And sometimes that happens. The kids hardly get anything and horrible clothes and hardly eat. I'm not saying Hillary's doing that. I don't know her. I don't know if she's a good lady or a mean lady, but that happens. So the child support system in America is broken. And another reason I think the feminists really targeted child support is because a lot of men were avoiding marriage. And so you can't really get alimony if you're not married to someone. But a lot of people now knock up a woman outside of marriage. A woman would say, oh, yeah, honey, I'm on the pill. And then you sleep with her. Oops, oopsie, I'm pregnant. And then if you're a wealthy man, let's say if you're like an NBA star, this happens to them a lot, of your movie star, you got to be real careful. Never believe. I mean, you shouldn't sleep probably outside of marriage anyway, sleep around like that. But you're taking a big risk, like false rape accusations, everything else. But then you don't know about the birth control. The woman could be lying. She could be hoping to hit the jackpot because let's say you're a famous celebrity, you get the woman pregnant, man, you get hit with a huge child support bill. She's going to get custody from the courts and you're going to be paying for the next 18 years. And you're basically really funding the woman's lifestyle if she has another man and parties with your money. So the feminists decided we just can't count on marriage because a lot of men are going outside of marriage. So we got to get some way to get resources out of the man. And this is a way we can do it. And it plays better too, because oh, it's not for the woman, it's for the poor child. Don't you care about the child? A man's got to be responsible for his children. Well, yeah, but just for the cost of the child, not for mommy's vacation to Europe or whatever. And but we don't do it there. So that's why the courts now they really emphasize more child support than alimony. And child support has become de facto alimony. So that is what's happening there with the child support. And then he's having to cover her legal fees. And I guess Jared, not gay Jared or something. I never really watched Crowder. I never really thought he was that funny. I never really got him. He promoted himself well, but I guess some people liked him. Uh, I don't know if I've watched any of his videos really, but anyway, I guess he had his partner and he is um siding with his ex-wife and he broke the non-disclosure agreement. So it's getting really messy that I think Crowder is suing Jared. So this is kind of where we are right now. Oh, another point I wanted to make is officially in the divorce cases, the father has equal rights to, should have an equal chance to get custody, physical custody of the children. But that almost never happens because what they will do, and this never happened to me. I was divorced when my kids were all over 18. But when they're under 18, what they do is they have these experts come in and they talk to the father and the mother. And these experts are left wingers, social workers that hate men. So as a man, you're not going to get a favorable review. It's just not going to happen. So by default, it's always going to go to the woman, unless the woman doesn't want custody. So that's kind of the situation there with Crowder. And speaking of Cernovich, he has some take on this too. Then I'll get, what is a function of marriage in the society? Because I don't want to necessarily scare people away. I read the Crowder docket and documents, and he went aggro out of the gate. Many men in divorces do in divorces, and it generally ends badly. Yeah, it really does. It's better to try to smooth things over and just do it, negotiate. Otherwise, it drags on forever and the lawyers get rich. He was in a community property state with no prenup. You're going to get wrecked and have to accept that. When it escalates, only the lawyers get rich. That's right, because they go back and forth, and meanwhile, they're charging every hour for your time. I don't care about the drama, like the discussions of wills and estates, just explaining how the system works and what happens. So, yeah, he is really, from Crowder's point of view, I don't really know. He seems a little bit naive, and I don't think he's getting good advice from his lawyers. I think he's trying to get physical custody, but he's not going to win physical custody. Hillary will. And he's just draining his bank accounts on lawyers. I mean, lawyers are happy to fight for it because they charge you per hour. Pick up the phone, talk for them for 1 minute, they charge you for the whole hour. So they're happy to keep it going on forever. But this is the situation. And here we go. Cernovich has some more thing to say about this. I know I'm being the red pill guy now, but I'm going to give another side to this balance too. If you're in a man in community property state with no prenup, you're at the mercy of the wife. You don't have to like this. She could be wicked. It could be unfair. That's all irrelevant in the eyes of the law. You're fucked and all you're going to do is burn money. Yeah. See, for the most part, in most states, I think people really misunderstand how divorce usually works. I mean, I've been through one and I never talk about it. I never will because that's just I don't believe in throwing dirt out there or anything like that. So I'm not going to talk about my own situation, but other people's situations I will talk about that I heard. in general, a lot of people think divorce is all about determining who is wrong, and the courts really care about who did the wrong thing, who's emotionally abusive, who committed adultery, who was I don't know, financially abusive, or whatever the grounds you're going to do, right? They usually don't care about that at all. They don't. They just like bored. They don't give a shit. They're like, okay, this is really, it's fairly simple anymore. It's an industry. And for the most part, unless you got huge assets, let's say you're a billionaire like Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, that had to be a expensive divorce. So lawyers love that divorce. It's complicated for those divorces. But for most people, it's pretty well set up. They do the same thing all the time. So what they do is it's a simple equation. Whatever you bring into the marriage, usually you get a key. And that's a misconception a lot of people have. I remember when Scott Adams, he had his gold digger model wife. You knew that wasn't going to last. Instagram thought, whatever. After a year's marriage, she was messing around and or whatever. I don't know if she was fooling around with guys, but she was flying all around. He was he was having fights on Twitter. And then she divorced him. Women almost always initiate the divorce, by the way. It's almost never men. And I'm not saying men don't deserve it. Men do bad things, but it is. It's just fact. 70, 80% of all divorces are initiated by women. And I say more than that. I say all breakups, about 70, 80% are initiated by the women. But that's another story. But a lot of people say, oh, he's got married to this girl. She's going to get half of everything he has. Nah, that's not how it works. So if he has he has all his Dilbert stuff. He's worth, I don't know, $75 million. When she comes into the marriage, he gets to keep that 75 million. It's what you create after the marriage, right? So if you come into a marriage with a house and land and whatever you bring into the marriage, that's still yours, even if you should get divorced, at least in most states. That's how it works. But where it becomes community property is when what you create after you're together, right? And that's where it gets a little bit complicated, right? Especially like Steven Crowder. I don't know his timeline, but if he made most of his money after he was married, well, it's a pretty simple formula. The state will say that she's entitled to half of it, even though she didn't work and stayed home. They're like, well, you're a couple, you're together, you did a division of labor. Steve, you did the shows. She stayed home doing whatever and being trad, she deserves half. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's just how it is. And so that's how it works. And or if you're married and there's two people have jobs, they like, okay, what's your combined income? Divided into whoever makes a little bit more has to pay a little bit to the other party. It's pretty simple that way. And then all your assets that were created after the marriage is divvied up 50-50. Then if you have kids that are minors, they determine who gets physical custody. And again, it's usually the woman. You can fight it if you want, and they'll have some social workers spend thousands of your dollars to say, no, you as the man aren't going to get your kids. The woman's going to get them. But you can see your kids every other week. And then they put your income through what they call the child support calculator. And it's pretty standard. So it's not really based on, oh, Steven Crowder was so mean to Hillary, or Hillary, she was, messing around with other guys. I'm not saying she was, but I'm just saying that as an example. The courts don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about that, about how they award money. They really don't. I mean, it's pretty much what they call no fault. They don't care about fault. They just care about, it's a formula how to divide up the assets. So I really think it's pretty what Crowder's doing. I understand it. He wants his children, but if he had a lawyer that was better looking after his interests, he'd say, Steve, you're not going to win this. You're a guy, you're a father. You can run up a bill, but Hillary's going to get physical custody and you're going to have to pay the child support. All right. And then let's just take a look here at the Lauren Southern here. Lauren. I remember her back in the day. She used to be like the darling of Pole on 4chan, but now she's aged a little bit. I think she's still attractive, but they've gone past her, so she's kind of changed her views on a lot of things, which is typical. It's funny, and I'm not just saying this about Lauren. This is an age-old thing. Even if you look at old Hollywood movies, I think Betty Davis did a movie about this, or maybe Joan Crawford. Sasha would know; she knows movies. But there's always been a theme of like the aging starlet start to be resentful of the new girls that are coming in. It really is a funny dynamic. In my life, I'm 60 years old, but I've seen multiple iterations of this, right? So the young girls, they're hot, young, and pretty. They get all the attention, and the older women are jealous and they say bad things about them. And then, the hot young girls just think the old women are silly and they're having fun. But when those hot young girls they age, they all of a sudden become like the women they were making fun of, and now they hate the new batch of young girls. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. So Lauren, I think, is kind of getting into that cycle a little bit here. And so she's kind of been signaling against the whole trad sphere, which we'll talk about really what that means. And what she's saying here is really crucial. You pay attention to trad's opinions on marriage and the value of a stay at home wife right now. Progressives don't even need to lift a finger. Trads are a feminist creation factory all of their own. And what Lauren is saying here is there's people that have this belief, because right now, again, even though Steven Crowder did all really the talent and work, whatever talent he has, I don't care for him, but it was his show. It wasn't Hillary, right? I mean, he fucked Hillary. That was it, right? And then she cooked food, and okay, but he did the show. He brought in the millions of dollars or whatever he makes. And so the question is it fair that she should get half of that? And that's the question here. And a lot of the guys responding to Lauren were saying, no, they shouldn't. I mean, she should go out and get a job. Why should it was Steve's baby? Why should he have to pay her half of his business when she didn't do it? But that's the way it is. And so Lauren is saying here, well, then if you buy into that philosophy, as a woman, you're taking a huge risk if you decide to be a mother and you quit your job, because then you get behind, you lose your career, and meanwhile your husband makes a lot of money. And she's saying that so it's not a good idea to be a stay-at-home mom. And I see her point. I guess I would say that there's always risk in life. And everything of value, there's going to be a risk to it, right? If you're going to, I went on my epic trip, right? There's risk. I could have been killed in a wreck, but I took the risk. There's always a risk in life, and there's risk in relationships. There's always a risk in marriage. But if you're scared to take risks, you're going to live, I don't think, a very, I don't know, fulfilled life. It's interesting in looking back on my life. I do have a lot of regrets. I really do. I've had a lot of joy in my life. I've had a lot of sadness. I've had a lot of success I'm proud of. I've had a lot of failures. That's my life. But I've never really regretted trying things. Sometimes I've tried things and extended myself and I failed. But while I didn't like to fail, when I'm looking back on it, I didn't regret not trying. Whereas I do regret where fear held me back from trying to do something. And I might have failed, but I might have succeeded. I will never know. And that even goes back to my younger days when I was very shy in high school. Well, I started to date as a junior. I guess like as I got a little less shy as I got older, but as a freshman and sophomore, I was very shy, especially with girls. And I would never ask a girl out because, oh, I'm scared of rejection. But see, that's a fearful mentality because I mean, what's the worst that would happen? You say no, but it, you can't live in fear. You got to take risks. Now, I know a marriage is a bigger risk, but it all comes down to finding the right person that you're compatible with. And you really can't put this into a checklist like age difference or religion or whatever, because everything is different. I mean, you can look at trends, but in the final analysis, you got to look at the person you're with. Are you going to be compatible? Are you on the same direction? And it's not a for sure thing. So concerning Lauren Southern, because Lauren's divorced, right? Her marriage didn't last long at all. Um, and then she spilled the beans about her marriage publicly, and her husband, I don't think ever did that. So that's not really fair because she's got a big platform. But now she's saying, oh, well, you're taking a huge risk if you decide to be a stay at home mother and wife. Um, yeah, but you get a lot of advantages too. There's a lot of plus side, and life is full of risks. So this is what Lauren is saying. So she's kind of going back and forth of, what should you do? What should be the purpose? Should a woman work or should she stay home? The whole trad thing, first of all, about women and working in our sphere, I find kind of strange that women shouldn't work because in my family, even my grandmother worked, especially when my father got older. When he left the house, she went back and worked at a department store to get some extra money. And she was just going to work part time. And she did really well, became an executive in Chicago, probably making more than my grandfather did. But it's kind of funny how that worked out. But so she worked, and my other grandmother worked, and even years ago, when you had like farms, women, they may not have worked in the office, but they worked. I mean, they were part of the household. So I think women working is not really a new thing, or it's not necessarily a bad thing. I know someone that told me, I'm not going to say who she is, because I keep my conversations confidentially. But she told me, I don't know. I was just talking to her. She goes, "Yeah, well, don't say anything, but I actually have a job." And I'm like, "Why is that a bad thing?" And she's like, "Oh, a lot of the people in the sphere don't like that. They like trad women." And there's nothing wrong if you're a woman having a job. So it's a strange conception. And it's sort of like the whole idea of how many babies you got to make. I hate that discussion. That's a personal matter between a couple. If they want to have, they can have no kids. If they want to have no children, that's not your business. That's their business. Don't interfere, right? If they want to have 9 kids, and as long as they provide for their kids, God bless them. Or if they want to have 0, that's good too. So you got to leave that alone. Some couples, both parties will work, and the mother, the father, that's fine. Sometimes the mom will stay home. That's fine too. So I think that is the key thing there. And I think sometimes in our sphere, we get into this weird fantasy of what trad means and really what that looks like. It's what I call the blonde girl in the wheat field looking sexy. And usually people that work in the fields don't look sexy, and they're not half naked because you get ticks on you and bugs, and it's a weird thing. But we have this weird fantasy that sometimes goes on there. So let's see here. I just want to. I've been kind of rambling on again, but I'm going to go on some more. I'm going to check super chats here, and I'm going to continue with my my Wednesday nights. Are I'm not so much looking at stories. I'm just going over topics. Mercer, I dislike traditionalism because an economically dependent woman will learn to be fake and manipulative. A woman that is financially independent will act in her nature rather than the trad wife mold. Uh yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, as a man, it's kind of interesting because Lauren Southern is having the point of view that it's a risk for a woman to stay at home and not work. But it's also a risk for the man because if you're married and you're the sole provider and your wife doesn't work, if you get divorced, then you have to pay her. And whereas if your wife is working and she's making about the same money as you do, she won't get anything. So it's actually a issue there too. And again, these topics I think really are different for every couple. And getting back to what it should be for us on the right, conservatives or whatever you want to call us, we should be pro-family. And by family, it's not this weird, two homosexuals together. It's a man and a woman, and they should raise the children as they see fit, as long as they're not harming the child, like decide, oh, we got to cut Johnny's penis off because we think he's a girl. No, you're not allowed to do that or give drugs to a kid, but it should be up to the parents. And I think we need to really respect that as people work through that. So I think there's a lot of different ways this can work. And there just seems this weird tension because a lot of these people that are fans, because I went to Michelle Malkin's house and she's married. I'm sure she made more than her husband and she was famous, but she still cooked, and that worked for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Other times you have people that women want to stay home, and if they're both in sync with that, I think that's fine too. I don't really we shouldn't make how many babies you have a right wing issue, and we shouldn't make if a woman works or not outside the home as a right wing issue. That really shouldn't be relative one way or the other. That's not really a right wing perspective. I think we need to take a perspective that parents should love their children. They should protect them and train them. And we should consider parents should have a sense of morality and how they conduct themselves with a sense of dignity. And those type of things I'm on board with. But all these other things I think are just a distraction. All right. A couple other things I had about this here. And Tim Pool Tim Pool jumps on all this is kind of the hot topic. And I got in the whole right wing sphere, whatever you call it. I don't know if Tim Pool's right wing. Crowder is rich, therefore he has to fund his legal opponent. And if Crowder was poor, the argument that because Stephen has money, he is required to pay his legal opponent is too communist for me. Anytime you sue anyone, it's war of cash. This isn't unique. Well, but how the courts would look at it, all the community property they had together, whatever their bank account was, she had a right to half of it. Now, whatever he had before the marriage, she can't get part of. But anything he made during the marriage, she has a right to 50%. And so that's the money that she is using for the divorce. That is kind of how that works. Tim Pool had another thing here. Let's take a look at this.
Again, Jerry Monroe posted it as GoFundMe. He says, I need your help to stop the abuse. Tell me to protect my wife and children from financial ruin and fight back. How? By dissolving my unconstitutional NDA and non-disparagement. So this is this guy. I guess he went not gay Jared or something. And after a divorce, he decided to side with Hillary. I always think, by the way, this is just a mistake. If a couple gets divorced, you don't have to take sides. It's usually a problem. I'm not sure why this guy's doing this. Jaron Monroe, I guess his name is. And he signed an NDA to work with Steven Crowder, which is common in business. You do that. I've signed many NDAs when I was in the corporate world. I'd be working, let's say, supporting a sales project. I was never a salesman, but I was tech support and understood, as a technical architect. And I had to sign NDAs to keep things confidential. So NDAs are not unconstitutional. I don't know what he's talking about there.
He already violated it. So any money he gets in a legal battle, he's already on the hook for whatever penalties that may be. This lawsuit being filed by Crowder, I think, what's the relief they're asking? Do we have the relief in here? I don't know what the relief is, but he's suing. Jared is being sued. This I don't get it.
Yeah, well, Jared, he's raised $72,000 in one day to fight his lawsuit against Steven Crowder. It's a lot of money. And Steven's suing him because he broke his NDA. So it's just a lot of drama mess. And it's kind of funny too, because people that are supposed to represent the right in these values, they tend not to really live the values. That is something when I was talking like about the Christian faith. I think one of the best ways you can give testimony of your faith is actually live the faith and actually walk the talk. But a lot of times in our so-called trad conservative circles, you have these people that are supposed to be so trad and whatever, but behind the scenes, they don't act that way at all, right? They're drug addicts, they screw around, they do all this different stuff. And so this is all kind of coming out. It is kind of funny, interesting to see how that comes about here. All right. And this guy had a comment. And then I think, probably pivot to Israel. It's fun watching post-wall Lauren Southern become increasingly feminist. It's kind of funny how men use that phrase, the wall. Like, any woman over 25 has no value. You know, I don't think Lauren Southern looks horrible. No, she's not 20 anymore, but it's kind of funny. So far, every young and pretty anti-feminist chick influencer I've seen come up over the last 15 years talking about men's issues has invariably switched to embracing the luxuries of feminism has bestowed upon them at the expense of men. The second it is more beneficial to do so. Yeah, you do see this. And there is a little bit, and I'm not saying with Lauren Southern, but there's a little bit in this whole sphere of a grift. And I hate the word grift, but people, they see a market and they play to that market until it doesn't work for them anymore. And because they get money out of it, right? So if you're a pretty young thing like Lauren Southern, I still think she's pretty, but she was hotter back in the day. And she says base talking points. She can have a lot of desperate, lonely men just showering her with money, right? I mean, it's just a fact. And she understood that. She understood that. And so then when she gets older, she gets through the divorce, all of a sudden that kind of changes a little bit. So it's typical. I'm not really surprised she went through that progression. That's why I always like to, I'm not against women commentators, but I want to hear what they're saying. And if they're saying something interesting, but if they're just a woman commentator repeating points, and I'm not going to say names, but there are a lot of them like this. They just repeat points, I would say, or Tucker Carlson or whoever. But they show their tits. They show a lot of cleavage. That's the only difference. That's, to me, is not enough. Showing your tits is not enough for me to really trust you from an intellectual perspective. You got to show it deeper. And there's a lot of women that have shown that they have the intellectual chops. Ann Coulter, she has her own issues, but I liked her. Michelle Malkin, I brought up again. So there's a lot of women out there that I really admire. They may be pretty, but they just don't rest. I think Laura Chen, that Hoppa girl, I think she's pretty intelligent too. And she's not all about showing her tits to, try to get sent money. So when you try to combine like, oh, I'm the hot, pretty girl, and I say these base talking points, give me money, I'm always very suspicious of those types. So that many such cases of this. And then finally, I'll just kind of end in this, a point Pearl made here. I guess this is the last tweet I have here. Since we're bringing this issue up, here are the questions you need to ask to determine if someone was actually abused or making it up. Yeah, the word abuse has been way overdone. Especially women have done this. They all women claim, not all women, they claim they have PTSD if a man yells at them or something, or ignores them or anything like this. I mean, there's real abuse where you get hit. That's what abuse was. And everything else I'm pretty skeptical of. And I agree with Pearl here. Was there a police report filed? Was she physically abused, or is it some feminist term like emotional abuse, financial abuse? Does she have actual injuries? And then what, did she hit him, or was there any, what was her indication? Because usually it takes two to tango. So the abuse things against Crowder, I'm pretty skeptical about. I'm sure he's an asshole. I never really cared for Crowder. Uh, Honestly, I always got kind of, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say. I always kind of got a gay vibe from him. I mean, he always liked to dress in women's clothes. I'm just saying. I always got a weird vibe from that dude. I don't think he's a good guy, but at the same time, I don't know if he really abused Hillary. Yeah, he was like an asshole to her in that one argument, but we didn't see the whole thing and how she did. So that was it. Tomahawk, $20. Here's to the new Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey Paul. Ring a big cowbell. Thank you. Yeah, I forgot the cowbell. Thank you, Tomahawk. Thank you. Yeah. And this is a good lead in because I got married, right? So there's the old question: is marriage a bad thing or a good thing? Despite all that, I think marriage is really the foundation of a society, a family, marriage between a man and woman and children. And the primary purpose of marriage is children, right? You have children and you raise your children. And I don't think divorce should easily be had when people have young kids. It's like, too bad you promised to be together. You got to work it out and raise these kids. Kids need a father and a mother. When you're young and you go through a divorce, it's very harmful on the children. And we need to get to the point that marriage isn't about you being happy. It's about you having a family and caring for the children. Because your little feelings are hurt, because, oh, Stephen is just emotionally abusive to me. That doesn't matter. You should have picked better, I guess. I guess you're rich. So she got a lot of benefits from Stephen. Lived in a nice house, had plenty of money. But the first priority should be for the children. And getting a divorce is bad anytime, but it's really bad when the kids are young. It really is. Kids need a father and a mother, and single parents aren't good enough. They need both. They really do. And it's really difficult for that. So I'm really opposed to that. And so marriage, I am actually for marriage. I think there needs to be some reforms in marriage to, like what I said, you shouldn't be able to get a divorce if you have young children. And you should only be able to marry a few times. I think 3 times at most in your life, unless you're a widow. I don't think I don't think you should be able to have more than 3 divorces in your life. It's just scamming the system. And child support should be, well, I want to have child support, but if you have child support, it should be based on the cost to really raise a child, and you guys split the cost. That's what it should be. And I think that would help a lot of these issues if we did that. So, but having said that, then marriage though isn't just for kids, because in older life you have a companion, someone that you're teamed up with, and I think it's a natural state to be in. And being legally married is different than just being with someone. It is different. You're kind of in the same, the Bible calls it you're one flesh. You're kind of one unit. You're one team. And that's how it should be looked at. So if you're married, it's not like you and your wife, it's you're like one group and you both have each other's interest. And it's not like you're trying to fight his money or her money, or it should be we're all trying to do what's best, both for the house, for the careers, for everything, right? And that's how it should be. So if you're going to get married, you want to find someone that shares those values, that really wants to support you, that you support them. And it's not like a competition or anything like that, because you should be on the same side. And that's why I've never really liked when I've seen women or men. It's usually women, though. I've seen married women complain about their husbands. They should never do that, at least publicly. You guys should always, you have disagreements. Everyone does, but you should always be on the same page together. All right. I think I got some super chats too. And I got one from Dylan. Thank you, Dylan. Let me just scoot over there and take a look at some of the super chats. Dylan, $33. That gives the cowbell. Dylan's funny. He's on my Gumroad. And he's kind of got the Sam High type sense of humor. It's really funny. Productive men are a natural resource like tuna or copper. They have been overfished and strip mined. Why produce excess when that production is stolen? Yeah, it can be that way. And I see what you're saying, Dylan. But ideally, the couple should be together and both people should be contributing, not necessarily the same amount financially, but you should look at it as one and you should be helping each other. And I think there's a problem when people have different, agendas or whatever. If you're a man, a husband, your first priority should always be your wife. And if you're a wife, your first priority should always be your husband. So you shouldn't go in with like a 50-50 mindset. I think that's really dangerous. You should go, no, I'm not looking at it that way. I want to do what's best for my wife. And your wife should have the same attitude towards you. No, I want to do what's best for my husband, not me. And you have that attitude. And if you have that attitude, I think it's a better way to go forward. And yeah, you got to be careful because there are gold diggers out there, women that are looking just to get people's money and stuff. And you got to be able to weed that out. I get it. So that's a good point. But excellent super chat. Uh, uh, Tony Soprano, the Sopran. All right, I was going to say Tony Soprano. I like The Sopranos. That was a good book. What are a few books you think are worth reading? I am currently trying to get through a book on Goebbels and Rome currently. And I'm reading Jim Goad's book, The Bomb in My Brain, because I think I'm going to use that for my Gumroad book club. And I'm going to interview Jim Goad. So I got multiple books going on right now. And when we were taking our epic road trip, Sasha put on, because I never read Harry Potter. So she put on the first book, Harry Potter and is it the Sorcerer's Stone or something like that? And so we got the, where they read the books on tape, and it was pretty good. It was kind of fun. So, and because I guess I should know that because everyone's always, oh, what house are you in? Or, oh, Voldemort. I always heard all these people, especially millennials, make all these Harry Potter references. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Doesn't make any sense to me. Dylan again, $20. Thank you, Dylan. Check out girl at grocery store complains her computer stand is broken. I whip out my screwdriver and tighten it up. I say, this is why you need a man. No, thank you. Yeah, that's pretty cool that you helped out the cashier at the store. Yeah, I don't see men and women are the same. We have different functions. And I'm hardly a feminist. I don't believe in the 19th Amendment. I think the vote should be for one household, and it should be up to the man to vote. But that's how it was in Rome, by the way. But still, women have influence, right? They influence the household, they influence the vote. Even in Rome, they did. So I'm no way a feminist, and I don't believe in women should be on juries or politicians. But I'm not against marriage. I'm not anti-woman. I'm not like women are the problem. That's a very destructive attitude. If we as a people are going to survive, we can't do it without women, and women need men. So we got to put a little bit the sex war behind us a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I like making fun of women, joke, and so when women make fun of men, that's cool. I don't care. But we can't get this. It's just a divide and conquer strategy that I think we need to really get over. And that doesn't mean race and feminism, because feminism is fundamentally anti-family, and we need to focus on what's good for the family unit. I guess that's really where the priority should be for. So, thank you for that. And so let me see if I missed anything. And I got all these different things open. I want to make sure I got everything. Let me check my rants. All right. So that's kind of the woman stuff. Now I'm going to go to the Israel stuff a little bit. What the heck, right? Because see, my Happy Homeland show, I'm not on a set time. I do whatever I want. I don't know if I'll do this as long because I've already talked a lot about this, but there's been a lot of stuff that's just, it's disturbing when you look at it. And I've been going after my Senator Tom Cotton, and he's usually a well, I'll show you here. And he's not a bad guy. He's pretty good on most issues. He's a Republican, but I follow him because he's my senator. And it's really weird because the way the democracy is supposed to work, at least on paper, is the people of a state get together and we vote for someone to represent us, right? So Tom Cotton, ideally, how it should work is he should represent the people of Arkansas and our interest, and then America, and then the world, right? So that should be the priority. Arkansas first, then the United States, then the world. So he should spend most of his time, and I posted this, like if I was senator, everything would be through the lens. I'm not here for me, right? These people voted for me to be their representative. Hence we get the name, although he's a senator. So I want to do what's best for the people in Arkansas. Doesn't mean I hate the other states. In fact, that's my second priority. I'm an American too. But first of all, Arkansas, then the United States and other countries. So everything I would do would be through that lens. So let's say like massive immigration. I would say, is it really good for the people in Arkansas to get a bunch of cannibals from Haiti? Is that going to really improve our life? Is that going to improve the life of people in Arkansas, in Eureka Springs and Fayetteville and Little Rock, and go down the list of the names, Hot Springs? Is that going to improve their lives to have Haitians living there? I don't think it will. So I'm going to vote based on that. No. And, okay, we have all these wars in Ukraine and Israel. I'm like, is this really helping the people in Arkansas? I mean, maybe it helped the people in Ukraine and Russia. I don't know. But no, I think the people in Arkansas, they'd rather keep that money for themselves. And if you look at the broader from the United States, we're broke, so we don't have money to spend on extra stuff like that. That would be my position, which is why I'll never be senator. That never occurs. It never occurs to someone like Tom Cotton. It just doesn't occur to him like that. It's amazing. He tweets pretty much about, I've never, ever, I might have missed it. I've never seen him tweet about Arkansas. I just never seen it. And he's supposed to represent us. He talks about Israel all the time. And I might start a challenge with Tom Cotton. I may start a viral challenge. Can Tom Cotton say the word Arkansas? He's a senator from the state. Can he say that word? I may start that on X. Maybe we'll start a betting poll. How many times will Tom Cotton say Arkansas before he says Israel? I counted in the past week, he's mentioned Israel 10 times. 10 times he's posted on X about Israel. The amount of times he's posted about Arkansas, 0. There's a problem there. There's a problem there. That's not how it's supposed to work. Something is really fucking weird, right? And I'm not picking on it, Israel. I mean, if he did this about Uruguay, I'd be like, what are you doing? This is bizarre, right? It'd be like the people in Arkansas, they elect me to Senate, and I spend all day talking about Hungary and what's best for the Hungarian people. And we got to spend more money for the Hungarians. We got to give everything to the Hungarians. Well, I like the Hungarians. I lived in Hungary for a little bit, but I'm representing the people of Arkansas. I would think people think, well, what are you doing? Are you being paid off by the Hungarians? Aren't you a senator from Arkansas? Aren't you an American? But this has happened, and we think this is normal. It's not normal. This is really weird. It's like he's a foreign agent. And I don't mean to, I don't try to be a mean guy, but I don't know else how you can say it. All right. If he did this with any other country, if he did this with China or Russia, he would be accused of being a foreign agent. And that is what he's doing now. And I'm not just picking on him because he's not like the only person to do this by far. Lindsey Graham's probably the same way. Asa Hutchinson, my governor, was that way too. And we got like literally, I looked it up once, maybe 2,000 Jews in Arkansas. So it doesn't make sense on any level. And so I don't know. I think I'm going to start a challenge. Maybe I'll get you guys involved. We'll see if we can get Tom Cotton to say the word Arkansas. Really, come on, Tom. We know you can do it. Come on, just once. Say it, Tom. Say it. Arkansas. I don't know. Does he ever come here? Maybe Tom, come to Arkansas. I'll show you around. I don't know if he knows the way around here anymore. Maybe he just comes here to campaign and go to the football game. Woo, pig suey. That's all they call the hogs. If you don't know what, you probably don't know the reference unless you're from Arkansas. Woo, pig suey. He probably knows that. But come here, Tom, and I'll show you around the community because I don't think you understand this community more. But that illustrates a bigger point, right? With all of the conservative ink is like, what? Why the hell are we controlled by Israel? And we are controlled, right? When every aspect, I think that Abbott, the governor of Texas, just made it illegal to be against Israel in Texas. Something violation of the First Amendment. It's like, what the hell? So you burn the Israeli flag, you go to jail for hate. You burn the American flag, yeah, that's fine. No, things are messed up. And I think people are really starting to see through that. And with this whole blow up with Candace Owens, I think there's a big change. I really do. Because so many of these boomer conservatives that just love Israel, God's chosen people, but they also love Candace Owens. Oh, our base black woman, she's a Christian. And then she gets fired from the Daily Wire. And then they hear, what? We're not allowed to say Christ is king? Now, to be fair, the guy in charge of the Daily Wire, he kind of made it worse. He goes, no, I'm not saying you can't say that. You can say that if I like it in a certain way. I'm like, who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you to tell me what I can say in my religion? But that's what he was trying to say. It's crazy. So I was talking to Sasha before the show, and she said, man, it's bad. She was reading a thread on like the Daily Wire, and people are canceling right and left, and people are mad. Like normie cons are mad, and they're canceling. And I think the Daily Wire is in a panic mode. And I really think that this is coming to the head here where we have the elite politicians like Tom Cotton, who never comes to Arkansas. Say the word Arkansas, Tom. That's my goal. I'm going to start something viral with you, Tom. See if we can get you to come to Arkansas. I'll show you around, Tom. I'll take you to the diner near me. And we'll take a selfie together, and then we can hope that Jesus comes back, that the Jews will build the third temple and the Antichrist will come. So, yeah, I mean, people are starting to say, well, wait a minute, this is messed up, right? It doesn't mean you hate Israel, you hate Jews. It's just like, this is our country. What's going on here? And so the people that run the party, like Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham, Asa Hutchinson, I don't think he really runs anything, but you know, who else? Mitt Romney. You guys probably know them all. Abbott. I'm there like, even Ron DeSantis, oh God, Israel, I beg, let me kiss you. It's like, no, I have nothing against Israel, but I want our politicians to represent Americans. Oh, that's hate. Oh, you want politicians to represent you? Oh, that's hate. You're a Nazi for wanting that. I know that's a response. This is crazy. We got to break free from that. We got to become independent. We need self-determination. We determine our own way. So I think the elites are starting to hear the rumbles a little. That's probably taking people like Asa and Tom Cotton by surprise. But there's rumblings. Even like Vivek was like, why in the hell is Asa wearing a flag of another country? That's weird. So people are starting to wake up a little bit. And I think this is a good sign. We need this discussion. Really, what is conservatism? And I did a video on this. And as I said, the God, family, and nation, right? I think those are basically conservatism. And so going back to the God, this was a Christian nation. Doesn't mean we don't have other people, but the fact we should put a nation that really hates Christianity, that's weird. That's a weird flex there. I don't know why we're doing that. And then getting back to family, that requires a mother and a father, a man and a woman, not two dudes, not two women, not two whatever or three or whatever. It's two, and you have a family. That needs to be the the bedrock. Needs to be where we start from here. So I think it's good we're having these conversations of what it really means to be conservative. And we deal with the whole issue of Israel, and we got to get beyond anytime we have our interests, they just yell anti-Semitism. We don't care about that term anymore. We got to talk about what's just and what's right, right? And again, there's a lot of things I like about Israel. They're kind of a model of ethno-nationalism. They protect the borders. They're for the Jewish people. I want that for our people. So there's a lot of things we can learn from them. And I'm not anti-Israel by any means, but we need to be pretty good on that. All right. Let's see here. What else before here? Oh, I got another Midnight Soul. I don't think it would be that difficult for Ben Shapiro to hire another base black woman that doesn't criticize Israel for the boomer cons. Candace Owens was always a fake sophisticate. I was never a fan of Candace Owens. She blocked me years ago. I don't know why, because I never talked to her. Maybe I was on a list of bad people or something. So I'm not like simping for her or anything like that. And I do think she's somewhat of a grifter on her own. But I'm not really quite sure. I think people are really tired of, because we have the issues that are fundamental, like we're losing our country because of mass immigration. We're being replaced. We won't have a homeland. We won't have self-determination. A crime is out of control. Our people are discriminated against because of their race. That's the official policy. We're all in this meaningless wars, spending billions or trillions of dollars. Then they want to cut our Social Security that we put in. So endless money for illegals that come here. Illegals. They're here illegally. They're breaking the law. Endless money for them. Us that follow the law our whole lives. We put money into Social Security. Fuck you. We have a financial problem. We're taking your money, giving it to the Haitian cannibals and to Israel and Ukraine. There's something, see, right there. See, if I was running for president, those would be my issues. I wouldn't be talking about, we got to stand for Israel. You either stand for Hamas or Israel. No, that's a false dichotomy. I'm not going to play that game. Yeah, I wouldn't be tweeting about Israel every day. I'd be dealing with issues that Americans care about. But maybe I guess that politicians are supposed to do that. So, but I see a change there. I see a big split in the party. I think the party could split. We haven't had really the parties dissolve since, the Whigs or whatever, and the Republican Party back then. We could see this happening again. And it may be overdue. It may be overdue. But I think we're having that come up. Let's see here. Super chat from Dylan again. Hey, Dylan, thank you for being so generous. Dylan. DEI or DEI is Latin meaning of God. Such irony in version of truth. Yes, God is the emperor, Christ is king. I agree with that. I never thought about the DEI, how that was in Latin. The diversity, equity, in what is the I for? In inclusion or something. But it really means didn't earn it. DEI, didn't earn it. That's a better way. Yeah. So, but there's been a big backlash against that. People understand that now. So, that is a good thing. So I see these two issues. I guess I'll wrap up now. It's been a while. I'm kind of fighting off a cold, and so my throat's kind of going here. It's been a fun, happy Homelands, though. I'm going to get back to doing interviews and that type of stuff. And the Ramsey Paul Show is going to be back on tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central. I'm excited to do that. And this week, if you're part of the Gumroad, not part of the Gumroad, join. This just $5 a month. And we're going to be doing it Sunday afternoon. And thank you all for the wedding gifts. We're going to get the thank yous out. I know Sasha's been doing that. So thank you, Sasha. I'm sure she's listening. And I guess she's not trash. She works. So yeah. But I like it that way. And yeah, it's been a good session. It's always been fun to be here with you guys. So thank you so lot, guys. And I will talk to you guys later.